Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging right into the heart of Ray class, where things have really been shaken up. Path of Exile 2's latest update, the third edict, that's patch 0.3.0,
hmm
it's dropped. And honestly, it feels less like an update and more like a seismic event for the game. We're talking brand new acts, fundamental system overhauls. There is just an incredible amount to get through. So our mission today, we're going to cut through all the noise, the massive patch notes, those great deep dive videos from creators like Misak Shiru, P. Forneyhoff, Spud the King, Lawcahol, you name it, plus all the forum and Reddit chatter. We're here to give you the shortcut, the essential info on what this update actually means for your gameplay, how it really reshapes Ray class.
Yeah, and what's immediately striking, I think, is how these changes aren't just adding new stuff on top. They're fundamentally altering the player experience, like from the ground up. So we're going to look at not just what's new, but maybe more importantly, why it matters, how different systems are interacting now, maybe in surprising ways, and what that means for, your build choices, your strategy. We'll cover everything from how you move around to the really high stakes end game crafting. We want you to get those aha moments.
Okay, perfect. Let's start with the new content then, this new frontier, Act 4, the Ungama Kanui Archipelago.
Yeah.
Now, this isn't just Act 1, 2, 3 again, right? It's non-linear, following on from Act 3. You get to Kingsmac, hire a ship.
Right, and then you're off exploring these 8 different islands. They've each got their own Karui tribes, unique dangers, bosses. But the key thing, like you said, is it's non-linear. You choose the order, which should make each run feel, well, pretty different.
That non-linear approach feels like a big step for replayability, even just in the campaign. And Act 4 isn't the only new content drop. We've also got the first full league for Path of Exile 2, launching with this, Rise of the Abyssals.
Yeah, the Abyssals. So this introduces this ancient evil popping up from fissures all over Ray class. You'll be fighting these monsters. They're like necromantically buffed. You seal the fissures they come from. And doing that gets you abyssal troves, with good loot inside.
And sometimes sealing those pits leads somewhere else entirely, right? These abyssal depths.
Exactly. Underground areas just packed with undead, better rewards, eventually leading to these ancient spires and abyssal commanders. It adds another layer. Oh, and if you find rogue exiles near the pits, they can morph into these Lichborn versions with special abyssal mods. And they might drop unique jewels, which is always nice.
So a dynamic system layered onto the world.
Yep.
And they've also added something to bridge the gap to endgame, these interludes.
Right, 3 new mini-acts. They replace the old cruel difficulty, which, let's be honest, could be a bit of a drag. These are specifically designed to get players smoothly up to around level 65. That's where the real endgame tends to kick off.
Makes sense. Smoothing out that progression curve. But you mentioned the system overhauls are the really huge part. Let's talk support gems.
Okay, yeah. This is monumental, the old rule. Only 1 support gem of each type per character. Gone. Completely removed. You can now use as many copies of a support gem as you want.
Wow. Okay. That just blows build possibilities wide open. No more 1 copy of Controlled Destruction limit, for instance. So does this mean I'm stacking like 3 added cold damage gems in Act 1? Or is it more complex?
It's kind of both, but leans more towards endgame power. See, it's not just removing the limit. Many support gems now have tiers, up to 5 tiers. As you level them up, their stats improve, and sometimes their basic function changes. Think like rapid casting first, 2/3, each one better than the last.
Okay, so progression within the gem itself.
Exactly. And then they added 11 completely new support gems, plus 40 really powerful ones called lineage supports. These lineage ones are endgame only, drop from specific bosses, and often act like unique items themselves. They're a huge deal for theory crafting.
So the takeaway isn't just more gems, it's about really specializing, going deep on powering up a single skill in a way you couldn't before.
Precisely. Hyper-specialization becomes much more viable. And this ties into the other big system change, the passive skill tree and character balance. They've added over 100 new notable passive clusters. That's roughly 20 per class archetype. The tree is significantly denser now.
More density means more meaningful choices when you spend those precious passive points.
Absolutely. Keystones, those big build-defining passives, they've been redesigned too, and they did a massive balance pass across all classes. The stated goal is much greater build diversity, making more playstyles viable. Oh, and a nice little bonus. Attribute requirements on gear and gems are down by about 25% across the board.
Oh, that's actually huge. Less scrambling for that last bit of strength or dex just to equip something. More flexibility.
Exactly. Less mandatory stat chasing, more focusing on the stats you actually want for your build.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Quality of life. The sprint feature. This was high on the community wish list, wasn't it?
Definitely. You can now toggle an option, keep sprinting while moving. You hit dodge, start sprinting, let go of the dodge button, and you just keep sprinting until you stop or use a skill.
People are calling it a W change. A big win for just getting around, especially with some of the larger map layouts. Addresses that travel time concern.
It absolutely speeds up traversal, no doubt, though you do see some creators saying it feels a bit like a Band-Aid fix. Maybe the maps themselves could be tweaked. And yeah, the community's already joking about all the skill issue deaths we're going to see, people sprinting straight into boss slams.
I can already picture it. Happens to the best of us. Now, speaking of smoothing things out, trade. Always a point of friction in ARPGs. What's new there?
The big one is the asynchronous trade system. This is something people have wanted for ages. Basically, you can buy items from someone even if they're offline. You manage your shop via an NPC, Ange, in Act 4 King's March. You do have to price items individually, and it only works with premium stash tabs converted to merchant tabs, but still.
But the core idea is no more waiting for the seller to be online, sending whispers back and forth. That just cuts out so much hassle.
Exactly. It should make trading significantly less painful, more of a background thing you manage.
That's a massive improvement. And there are other smaller QLL things, too.
Yeah, a bunch of nice touches. Holding Creel at Character Select lets you log straight into town or your hideout. Checkpoints can warp you to any waypoint in the current area, not just the start. Omens, those temporary buff items now stack up to 10. NVIDIA Reflex is back, and they've made significant improvements to the controller UI. Little things, but they add up.
They really do. Okay, let's talk endgame and crafting. Pinnacle content access has changed. No more single keys determining difficulty.
Right, that old system is gone, where one key dropped, and maybe it was for a difficulty you weren't ready for, or you felt like you had to sell it. Now, most Pinnacle bosses drop splinters. You take these splinters to the Realm Gate device.
That's the endgame boss portal thing.
Yeah. And there, you choose the difficulty level you want to run, and each level costs a different amount of splinters. It gives you much more freedom to actually run the content at your own pace.
That sounds much better. Less pressure, more playing. What about the Arbiter of Ash boss?
That fight's reworked. It's now a static difficulty, always the same, but with infinite portals so you can keep trying. The rewards are equivalent to the old difficulty 4. But if you want the real challenge, there's an Uber version now.
Uber Arbiter, how do you access that?
You need new items called Calamity Fragments, and these only drop from Citadel bosses after you've fully maxed out your Boss Atlas passive tree.
Okay, so that's definitely gated behind serious endgame investment in the Atlas system. A reward for the dedicated.
Pretty much. It ensures the toughest challenges require significant engagement. And this idea of player control extends to map modifiers too, the Waystones. They've been totally reworked. Now, every Waystone mod has a specific downside, like monsters deal extra cold damage. It also has a specific upside, maybe +% monster pack size, and it adds some Waystone drop chance.
So a clear trade-off on every mod.
Exactly. And crucially, they made the downsides generally weaker, so you can stack more modifiers on your maps. It gives you much more granular control over difficulty versus reward, tailor your own challenge.
More control, less pure RNG deciding your map's fate. I like it. And crafting. You mentioned new currency tiers.
Yeah, new greater and perfect versions of the basic crafting orbs. Transmutation, augmentation, regal, exalted, chaos. The key thing is these guarantee that the mods you roll are of a certain minimum tier, so fewer totally useless low-tier rolls when you're crafting. It should make getting decent items a bit easier.
That addresses a big point of frustration, hitting those tier 6 life rolls. But the really big crafting news seems to be Inakora's Lock.
Oh, absolutely. Hainakora's Lock is... well, it's a massive game changer for high-end crafting. For anyone who's sunk fortunes into trying to hit that perfect mod.
What does it actually do?
You apply it to an item. Then, when you hover your next currency orb over that item, say, an Exalted Orb the Lock lets you preview the result before you click.
See the mod it would add, without using the Exalt.
Exactly. If you don't like the previewed mod, you do something reversible to the item, like adding quality with an armor scrap, or using a Divine Orb, maybe, that resets the lock's preview. Then you hover the Exalt again, and you get a new preview. With enough locks, you can essentially keep resetting the preview until you see the mod you want, and then use the currency.
Wow. So it effectively allows guaranteed crafting outcomes, assuming you have enough locks and patience. It takes the RNG out.
It removes the RNG from that specific currency application, yes.
Yeah.
The insight here is that it turns top-end crafting from pure gambling into a process of resource accumulation. It's predictable, if potentially very expensive in terms of locks.
That fundamentally changes the pursuit of perfect gear. It becomes a grind for locks, not just luck. How rare are these locks likely to be?
We expect them to be very rare. It's not going to make perfect items common overnight, but it gives the super dedicated players a deterministic path. It'll likely create a whole new economy around the locks themselves.
Fascinating stuff. Okay, let's shift to combat itself. Armor, always a tricky one in PoE, especially against elemental damage. What's the rework?
Right, so the big picture. Armor in PoE 2 is now better against lots of smaller hits, especially mixed damage types, but maybe less effective against one single massive elemental hit compared to PoE 1 stacking resistances.
How does that work mechanically?
Armor now applies a percentage of its value against elemental damage from hits. That's the direct buff against elements. But the trade-off is nerfs to sources of plus maximum elemental resistances on the passive tree. Many nodes got replaced with these new armor applies to elements effects. Now, the tricky part is the calculation order. In PoE 2, armor mitigation is calculated before resistances. In PoE 1, it was after.
And calculating it before is worse for big single hits.
Inherently, yes, for one big elemental hit. Resistance shreds a percentage off the top first in PoE 1, then armor deals with the smaller remainder. In PoE 2, armor has to deal with the full whack first. However, and this is where it gets really interesting, when damage gets split, like those map mods, monsters deal percent of physical damage as extra cold, or monster skills that convert damage, the armor formula applies separately to each chunk of damage, the physical part, the cold part. So against lots of smaller hits or split damage types, armor becomes much, much more effective. It protects against chip damage really well.
Okay, so it's a more nuanced defense. Good against death by 1,000 cuts, less so against a single giant laser beam. Interesting. What about offense? Mental infusions?
That's a new system, yeah. You can basically collect these temporary buffs, elemental infusions, often by using specific skills in combination. These infusions can then power up your primary skills, either increasing damage of the same element or adding new effects. Like, using Spark near an orb of storms might grant you a lightning infusion to boost your next lightning skill. Encourages skill rotation.
Cool. And there have been some pretty major skill adjustments too, right? Lightning Spear took a hit.
A big hit, yeah. It now only fires 5 secondary bolts, regardless of level, and it lost that big 50% more damage on Frenzy Charge consumption bonus. Estimates are like 40–50% less single target damage.
Right.
Still okay for clearing packs, probably, but definitely not the meta king it was.
But Flicker Strike got buffed.
Hugely buffed. They removed the chance to not consume power charges, but gave it absolutely absurd damage scaling instead. Endgame setups are looking at potentially like 550% more DPS. It's positioned as a real boss nuker now.
Whoa, that's a turnaround. What about Arc?
Arc got a full rework. It's a projectile skill now, chains more times baseline, has 50% increased shock effect magnitude, and it can consume lightning infusions for even more chains and damage. Deals way more damage overall, looks very promising for both clear and single target.
Nice. Any other notable changes? The Roa mount.
Yeah, the mount gives 15% increased movement speed now, which is nice. But it also gives an 80% less movement speed penalty while using skills on the mount. So you basically slow to a crawl if you attack while mounted. Discourages mounted combat.
Okay, so it's purely for travel speed. Freeze and Salvo Incinerate.
Freezing salvo damage down, cooldown, and detonation time up. Applies generic elemental exposure now, not cold exposure specifically. Incinerate needs mana spent as fuel now. It doesn't automatically leave burning ground. Lots of tweaks across the board.
And monster stats got adjusted too.
Yep, monster evasion is lower, about 30% less for level 80 monsters, making accuracy less painful. Act 3 boss life down about 15%. And rogue exiles get more life scaling from level 65 up.
Okay, so with all these systems shifting, the big question for players is the meta. What looks strong for starting out in 0.3.0? Which ascendancies are shining?
Well, looking at what creators are saying, Deadeye for the Ranger is consistently top tier, like S tier. Just crazy speed, great projectile scaling for skills like Lightning Arrow or Lightning Rod, good clear, good boss damage, surprisingly decent survivability, often called the queen of speed and damage, and that called shots node auto-marking enemies now. That's just gravy.
Deadeye looking strong. Who else is up there?
Blood Mage, the Witch Ascendancy, also frequently S tier. It's a new favorite caster. Gets 2 extra free Ascendancy points, which is huge. And its key nodes, Sanguinius and Sunder the Flesh, got big buffs for crit and scaling. It might start a little slower, they say, but the ceiling for builds is incredibly high.
High potential there. Any others in that top bracket?
Ritualist for the Huntress is often mentioned as S tier specifically for one thing, Rarity stacking. If you want to build for maximum magic find and endgame gear farming, it's seen as the best option for that playstyle.
Okay, so clear top tiers. What about solid, reliable A-tier choices?
Lich, another witch ascendancy, looks really solid. Good for minions, good for self-cast, reworked around Eldritch Empowerment, 30% damage if you sacrifice some ES and Price of Power, 40% more damage when you spend a power charge. Plus, Dominion over Flesh gives infinite curse duration. It seems pretty easy to get going, great for newer players maybe, especially Essence Drain Contagion builds seem popular there.
Good starter potential. Who else is A-tier?
Invoker, the Monk Ascendancy. Your classic staff master, strong with cold and lightning damage, good utility, good defense. And it synergizes perfectly with that new Hollow Palm technique Keystone. Lets you use quarterstaff skills while unarmed for big damage. Titan for the warrior can be tanky, creative, but maybe more gear dependent.
What about sorceress and warrior alternatives?
Stormweaver for Sorceress is considered very strong for leveling. Lots of synergy, can get +1 limit to skills like Orb of Storms, some RNG on infusion generation though apparently, and Warbringer for the warrior. Great for face tanking with war cries and block. Answered Call, got a big buff, summons more totems, more ancestral spirits, good boss killer. Warcaller's Bellow lets you chain corpse explosions.
Okay, so lots of strong options.
Yeah.
Any ascendancies people are advising to avoid, maybe?
Smith of Kitava seems heavily nerfed, generally underwhelming according to reviews. Witch Hunter and Chronomancer are often seen as maybe too niche or just not as competitive for a league start right now.
Got it. And beyond ascendancies, any specific build strategies standing out?
Yeah, some tested mercenary builds are doing well, like a grenade-focused one called Doomslayer Deadeye. And that strategy of muling seems quite popular for an edge. Like starting as a mercenary just long enough to grab the explosive grenade gem and a crossbow super early, then putting them in the shared stash for your actual ranger starter. Little tricks like that.
Smart. Okay, so for you listening, getting ready to jump into point 3.0, what are the key takeaways?
Mobility is king. Get used to sprint, get good with dodge rolls, dexterity classes offer good built-in defense with deflect. Pet builds, especially leveraging those new lineage supports endgame, scale really well. AoE skills are still efficient for leveling fast, and definitely take advantage of that asynchronous trade to get key gems or uniques early without the hassle.
And focus on the basics while leveling, right? Resistances, life, movement speed. Don't obsess over item rarity early on. Use a loot filter, check vendors. Standard good advice, but maybe even more crucial with all the changes.
Absolutely. Build that solid foundation.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what's the big picture? The third edict, patch point 3.0. It really does feel like a transformation for Path of Exile 2's early and end game. New places to explore, completely new ways to build characters with the gem changes, easier trading. It's just packed with potential.
Yeah, if you connect it all. The theme seems to be increased player agency, more build diversity, more ways for you to find success and fun. Sure, some bits might feel like Band-Aid fixes the sprint debate, maybe, but other things, like the support gem freedom, the Hainakora's lock crafting, they fundamentally deepen the strategy. It really invites you to explore and adapt.
And here's maybe the most interesting thought to leave you with. With so much being changed, so many systems interacting in new ways, how are you going to use it all? Will you follow the meta builds we talked about? Or will you dig into that denser passive tree, tinker with those new support gems, and maybe find some completely broken, unexpected combination? The game has changed, and the truly powerful builds might be ones nobody expects.